one man saying that is fine. If that's your opinion and you're not in it, that's fine. But there is an entire market of millions and millions of people that agree that it is a store of value. So, you can think one thing, but there's also a market, and markets tend to become efficient over time.
We do know that you will always get paid in Hex on a daily basis. And that is truly the miracle that we call Hex, because it is trustless interest, trustless yield. Nothing will stop that contract from running.
What is up, everybody? Welcome into the Creed of Crypto podcast. How you doing? I am Broke Boi Crypto here with you again. And as always, I have my friend and co-host Crypto Ewok here too. Luckily, he had a bit of an incident earlier today that we'll get to towards the end of the show. That is a nice lesson for everybody to look out for scammers in this industry, something that we are all somewhat familiar with. But welcome in. If you guys are in here in the chat, smash the like on your way in. We really appreciate it. We got a lot to talk about tonight. Is it Uptober? Everybody is saying it. I'm sick of hearing the word Uptober a little bit. Are so many people saying Uptober that it's going to be Rectober? I don't know. Where does sentiment lie? As far as the PulseChain ecosystem, it is a big month. We have Liquid Loans announcing that they will be launching this month, as well as their Fetch Oracle, which is probably, hey, no insult to the PH guys. Matter of fact, I don't insult them at all because they already got their products out. But Liquid Loans is one of the most anticipated products to launch on this blockchain, and it looks like it is happening this month. So we've already had a little bit of rallying within the PulseChain ecosystem price-wise over the last week. Had a dip the last few days. RH busts out some tweets today. We're headed back up a little bit. So we're going to get into all that and much, much more. First off, Ewok, how are you doing? How you feeling this evening?
Feeling good. It's a crazy day. Glad we get to talk about it a little bit later. Warn people about what to look out for and what not to do, because I made a simple mistake, and it cost me a good hour or so of some grief, but got it all straightened out. I didn't lose any. I didn't lose anything, actually, except a little bit of dignity.
Yeah. And promoting something you never would have for a few minutes on Twitter. So
how about Blur?
Yeah, we're going to get to that here shortly, but it is a good story, so stick around for that. First off, let's go ahead and get to where we've been kind of price-wise with BTC and ETH and the rest of the market. Nice pump for both of them, as if Uptober were programmed on October the 1st, which I think was Sunday, if I recall. Sunday evening, it was just like out of nowhere, like bam, market is pumping, basically. Everything started to go up. Everybody, we heard the whole narrative throughout September. Oh, September's always red, blah, blah, blah. And it actually was a solid month anyway. And yeah, as if programmed in, Uptober was here and started pumping immediately. It's crazy in crypto because that was only 3 days ago, and I feel like it's in the distant past already. But we had a bit of a dip in the market, especially in PulseChain since that time. Now, here we are kind of gradually moving up again. So what do you think, Ewok, about the markets at large throughout the rest of this month? Is it going to be a green or red October? I've been checking sentiment on some of the big accounts, which is something that I like to do, as well as just kind of scrolling Twitter and stuff. I looked at a Ben Cohen poll that he put out the other day, Discover Crypto, formerly Boi Crypto, and a poll that they put out. But what are you kind of seeing? What do you think we're going to head for the overall market here in October? Because we have been seeing lots of sentiment of, hey, Uptober, but some of the results I'm seeing in these polls hasn't really been that way. So what do you think about October?
Yeah, I still haven't really changed my mind too much. I think it's going to be, a lot of up and down. I think we're going to have some pretty good run-ups, but beware, as I had said before, that, when there's run-ups, there's always going to be traders looking to take some profits, use you as exit liquidity, and maybe look for a little bit of a cascading effect to buy back in. So, we almost take 2 steps forward, 1 step back. It's kind of how I see, the markets reacting here, even in this chart with Bitcoin. It did make a nice run October 1st into the second and went all the way up to the 28,700 or whatever it was, 28.6,
Right.
and then immediately pulled back down. But keep in mind, it's still above where the bottom of the market started on the first. So you're going to see a lot of that stair stepping stuff and people trying to trade. The cool thing about green candles, though, is that it energizes more buyers to get in. So you ultimately have more buyers than sellers. So even though there is some pullback, there's still more sentiment going the right way. So, I think if we look at that image, I want to pull it up here, of the market psychology kind of thing, the psychology of a market cycle. Let's see if I can.
There you go.
Zoom in on.
Maybe just do control and go up, and it'll do it. I mean, I see it pretty well.
But so, we're in we've already passed the anger stage, I think. And, we're somewhere in here. The depression stage has obviously been set in for a lot of people for a while, but the problem becomes this disbelief area where when it does run up, you have people talking like I'm talking right now and say there's probably going to be a pullback. And that kind of catches people with their pants down because, they're waiting maybe for a better entry point and it just takes off on them. So,
Right.
As far as DCA people, I think that, I think that, you want to, if you're not already in, if you haven't been getting in at some of these lower levels already, you definitely want to start your plan, now. There's no better time than right now to be getting some of these low prices, save a little bit in case there is a larger pullback. But, I think the goal right now is you should be, the majority of your dry powder should be in, unless you're just DCAing every paycheck, maybe. And then you're still in good shape, because if you've been doing that all along, then you're good to go. That's kind of where I'm seeing things. And, but like I said, we're seeing run ups, and then when they pull back, we're still higher than the previous low. So we're ultimately seeing higher lows, which is a good thing.
Going back to the Wall Street cheat sheet thing, something that I want to bring up actually is, it's interesting because you were talking about the disbelief phase, and we can try, as we all do, I think, to put that chart into the Bitcoin chart or whatever, pick your crypto of choice, like what is happening right now, which is just kind of too convenient, I think, to try to do that. But that disbelief thing, which you're talking about, like the chance that some people are getting there right now, there are people in that phase and have been in that phase since like Christmas of last year. Crypto Capo probably is the most popular one on Twitter. I think he's kind of lost some relevancy because he's been calling for 10 or 12K consistently since before the FTX days, all of last summer. And by that, I mean of 2022. And he's still, like, just the other day in some like Telegram group, I saw like a snapshot of a big note that he posted, and he is still talking about his plan for 12K. So, I mean, there are people that this rally into the 20s and up to 30 so far, this is the disbelief phase for them. So it's really interesting how that works. Like, it isn't just a, perfect shoe that fits the whole market or anything. I think people are in different phases of this, but I agree with you. I mean, it's hard to really delineate between, the anger, the fear, the depression, all that stuff down there. We've been in that bucket, I think, for a year. I mean, I think that's pretty much where we have been, but certainly if we're looking left to right, we're more to the right of this overall chart right now.
Yeah, I would hope so. I tend to agree. And I think, it's never perfect, right? That psychology chart is never laid out perfect, but you can zoom in and out on some of the dips and see them. And honestly, like I said, I think we are just looking at it probably in this area where you can see some of these run ups, and then they do pull back, and they run up and they pull back. So I mean, it's gradual on this chart, but like I said, I think that's about where we are, somewhere in here. Just
Yeah.
just
I'm with you there. What do you think we're looking at the rest of the year here? Like, what's a target for you for Bitcoin by the end of the year? Do you think it can, we've already been at 30 and then kind of dip back below that again. Do you think that 40K by the end of the year is a realistic possibility, or do you think that that's too aggressive right now?
I think it's really aggressive, especially not knowing what the macro is going to do. If they're just going to sit back and let things play out to get some more numbers, is what they're saying. 40 is pretty aggressive. I also think the news of the ETF is going to make a big difference too. And I think, when was that pushed out to? They deferred
Yeah.
that for a little while. I didn't see a date until they're going to circle back on it. But
Yeah.
did you see a date?
I don't know the date, but I mean, we just know that they're just going to continue to try to push it back and stuff like that. Like, they pushed it back and delayed it before they even had to make a decision to do that. So
Right.
scam, it's a joke. Yeah.
So, I mean, I think the news of that is going to make a big difference, or a reversal. If we get a reversal on interest rates, that could definitely spark things too. But, until that happens, I think we're just going to see a nice, slow, steady rise. Maybe 30, 35.
Yeah.
40 isn't all that far off, I guess, but I think 35 is even pushing it. You're looking up into some of these levels that, we go back, we haven't been there since, even 35. We haven't been there since May of 22. So that's how long
Yeah.
it's been since, even that level. Yeah. May of the end of
A little
May
before
in
Terra Luna.
2022. Yeah.
Yeah.
We were bouncing right around in between 31 and 30, 32 and 30. So, it's been quite a while since we've hit those levels or been at any of those levels. So it's going to take a little more than just some hope, I think, at this point.
I think so too, but I think we are going to start to see more and more bullish stuff coming up. I mean, the fall and winter, traditionally in markets is going to be bullish. We have an election coming up, obviously. Your point about the Fed, I mean, I don't think we're going to see a pivot anytime soon as far as like this quarter, obviously. Their next meeting is the end of this month, actually. Yeah, the 31st and the 1st of November. I think we'll just see a continued pause there. But yeah, I could see 35 anyway by the end of the year, which of course I will probably raise alts up, to a decent degree, to a little bit more respectable of a number. So I think it's going to be a bullish, not crazy bullish, end of the year anyway. And, obviously as we get into 2024, into the Bitcoin halving, that end of the first quarter, beginning of the second quarter is going to be when things are really interesting next year. So
I agree.
It's just time. Yeah.
And it doesn't look quite as bad for Ethereum. Like, I mean, Ethereum was up in the 2150 back in April. So that wasn't that long ago. And we're really still $600 away from that level.
Right.
But to get up into the, 3,000 level, yep, we're back again in April of 2022. So a whole year has gone by from here to here. So
Yep,
that's what we're looking at.
Yeah, I realized I didn't really say the prices, but yeah, Bitcoin at 27.7K right now, ETH at about 1650. And then looking at our ecosystem and PulseChain, again, some pumpage today that conveniently started happening a little bit after RH fired off a couple of tweets. So people, I guess that's just where this market is right now, is they, think that the guy's gone or something. And if he tweets, it starts to pump. I don't know. But we got Pulse at quad zeros in a 4.6. PulseX still the whole way down at quad 0 1178. Hex on PulseChain is at a little over 0.8 of a penny. That's really gone. There's been a lot of volatility with both hexes here during this little run, but Hex on Pulse is up 4.5% over the last day, and then eHex still hanging out. Like, it refuses to go below really that 0.3 of a penny. It had a lot of sell pressure the last couple of days to do so, as did the ecosystem. We're going to get to why now that we're kind of recovering a little bit, but eHex still at that 3.3 of a penny right now. Last thing I want to say, like in terms of the macro, and I was listening to this today, and I would implore anybody to check this out. Arthur Hayes is awesome. Economist, lives in somewhere in Asia now, but he actually went to the University of Penn. He's a United States guy, about 38 years old. I heard an interview with him today and yesterday on the Tom Bellew podcast. It's called Impact Theory, I think, with Tom Bellew. I'm not the biggest Tom Bellew fan, but Arthur Hayes, I am for sure. Hearing that guy the last couple of days, I wish he were in America and running for president, because he would be the guy, I think, for me. But he, helped start BitMEX and stuff like that. Super pro crypto, but I'll just fill you in now, Ewok. I was listening to what he had to say, and this guy, again, really smart dude. Your friend Sami talks about him all the time. And I was listening to this interview today, and he actually is speculating that he thinks that because of the massive money printing that is going to have to come up over the next couple of years, he thinks it's going to be the biggest massive money printing event that we've ever had. And then that will fuel crypto, along with AI being one of the big sectors that people are going to speculate on here in this next bull run, which I think he's probably right on, not just in crypto, but I mean, just overall, like AI companies and things like that. He is calling for like an insane blow off top worldwide, every market, or the most important ones anyway, just total blow off that will culminate at the beginning of 2026. And this is a very wide range. So, if he hits it, okay. I mean, I'll be ecstatic if he hits the low end of it, but he speculated Bitcoin between 150K to 750K by the end of this in early 2026. I will, if it gets to 150K, I am 100% content, because we don't care about Bitcoin. I mean, we do as far as where the market goes, but we're not holding Bitcoin. So with what we're holding, there would stand a reason we'd be doing pretty well. So, and then obviously after that, he's calling for a depression-like scenario, or, super recession, things, really tanking for a few years. But there's people that are bullish out there as far as in cryptocurrency. They're just going to do the, dial up the other 4-year cycles and say late 2025, whatever, which could be true. This is one of the more bullish things that I've seen. And I'm telling you, he's not like a permable idiot or anything like that. I mean, he's a really, really, really smart guy. I just wonder what you think about that scenario. Because I mean, he is right about the money printing. It's going to happen. It's going to come on strong. They've been doing it now for 30 years. It's just the way we deal with it in the United States, as irresponsible and crappy as it is. We don't let free markets play out. We interject and print a bunch of money because that's the only way people know how to live in this country. So what do you think? I mean, I definitely don't think 750K BTC, but if he gets the low end of it, I'm totally content with that.
Well, I think that was one of our targets, was between 140 and 150. It was that was high. That was a high target. I've since dialed it back, probably closer to 135 ish. I think the 750,000 is wishful thinking for Bitcoin. Especially if the ETFs come into play and there's a lot of big holders in there. It will be manipulated to very much like gold. You can see gold has been stuck at $2,000 an ounce forever now, and it's even dropped below that, and it just can't seem to break that level. So I don't know. I think he's over estimating, but again, I don't know what the macro does. I don't know, no one does. We don't know how much money they print. Will they get us in even more trouble than they got us in the last time? Maybe. Depends on what the situation is in the world. Are we still at war fighting a battle that's not ours to fight? There's a lot of things that really kind of play into that. So I think he's, overestimating, but again, I like the sound of it, because if that all happens, you're right. Our ecosystem should do just fine as well.
All things considered that are even been going on over the last couple of months. Just shout out to the chat to Mr. Chuck. We are going to talk about the Fetch Oracle here coming up soon, and liquid loans as well. And then the other big news from today too, the judge dismissal of the SEC appeal against Ripple, which I think we all probably thought was coming eventually. This is just another huge L for the SEC. And I saw someone had tweeted the 10-page document from the judge that basically, outlined their reasoning for dismissing this appeal. And it was funny, they did the whole word search thing, and they had the word fail or failure in there like 10 times, just everything the SEC had failed at in this pursuit.
Right.
And again, these judges are human beings, and I imagine that they do take into account, they have knowledge of this. And we're not going to talk too much of the SEC and Richard Hart PulseChain stuff here this evening, just because I think we covered it plenty with Rags to Riches last week, if you want to go check that out. But this has to bode well, these precedents that are now happening. Everybody just was beating their chest just a couple of months ago about, like, the SEC doesn't lose. Don't you understand how many of these cases they don't lose? It's 98% win record, whatever. I mean, they're 0 for their last 3 or so anyway, when it comes to crypto. I mean, they just lost to Uniswap, Ripple. I mean, it's not looking good. So yeah, what do you make of this as far as because Ripple, we've talked about it. If anything in crypto you would deem a security, okay, like, and you wanted to, Ripple is probably the best case you could make. With it definitively now not being one and their appeals failing. I mean, where do you think this puts our ecosystem up against this corrupt organization and some of the others, that are sure to come, because all they do is just fire off a tweet about these are all securities, and that's all we've got to say about it. So what do you think? What do you think about this precedent?
Yeah, I think it's great. I think what it's saying for everybody else is you definitely stand a chance. These guys are overreaching. There's a lot of, like you said, precedent being set. And if Ripple isn't a security, then there are so many other things that aren't. We go back to when they came up with the Hex Investment Trust. I don't think they would have allowed the Hex Investment Trust to operate after looking at what the main product of it was, if it were a security. They pretty much deemed right then and there that it was a commodity. It's fine. It's sufficiently decentralized, even with the OA. I don't think that. I think they have less and less of a chance to win cases moving forward. In fact, it may even bring some of the others to. I don't know if they'll come back and appeal the decision or not, like Library and some of the tokens in the past. Maybe want to revisit. You know what I mean? If they want a little resurgence, if they've got the capital to do it, I suggest now is probably a good time to appeal decision and say, maybe we want another judge. Maybe we want you to look at this again after the things that you're saying now about some of these other things. So it's bullish. It's really bullish. Very good news for everybody. And yeah, I mean, we don't need to really touch on the whole suit by for Richard Hart or whatever. Again, we don't know that he's even been served. So
yeah,
could be a big nothing burger in the end, and a lot of this stuff just kind of they dismiss before it even gets to that point.
Yeah, or at the very least, at this phone conference that's coming up with the SEC and Richard Hart supposedly on November the 28th, we may find out right then and there that the judge just doesn't give a shit about it, and that maybe there's just not enough to go on with the SEC. So yeah, we'll see. But certainly, this happening is a great precedent. So really glad to see it for sure. Whether you care about Ripple or not, it's great. And yeah, Mr. Chick's definitely a big time losing streak here for sure. So.
Yeah. Said the judge had to do Gary's job and classify ETH for him, since he won't come out and say it.
Exactly.
Again, the non-clarity that they're giving is starting to upset a lot of the judges, and I think they're tired of it as well.
Yeah. And speaking of which, and I was going to look more into this. I typically don't care too much about this stuff, but yeah, we saw Kevin McCarthy, the Speaker of the House, get removed the other day for the Republicans, and now our man Patrick McHenry, Mr. Bowtie Boy, that has been challenging Gensler big time. And hey, Rags mentioned it last week on the stream, how much of this stuff is for show, how much isn't. I don't know. I hope it's not all just political theater, but that guy is now the interim Speaker of the House, so that's kind of a cool thing. I don't know what the prospects are of him staying there, but guess we'll see. So,
there was talk of Donald Trump being appointed to that position too, but I heard earlier today something about the fact that he has unsettled indictments against him, kind of disqualifies him at this point. So
it is convenient. I'm sure there will be more to come. So
yeah, I'm sure.
If you guys are here and enjoying the stream so far, do us a favor and hit the like. It really helps us out and shows us that you do like the content. We do this every single Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So let's get into our ecosystem here. So PulseChain, big time pump as soon as Uptober began with the rest of the market. And do you want to pull the chart up? We can just kind of look at PulseChain here whenever you get a minute, Ewok.
Sure.
Just to kind of maybe we'll look at some of what the next resistance levels could be, what we could see from Pulse in the ecosystem from here. We can look at the PulseX chart, not to depress anybody, but maybe we can look at both of those. But I want to, as you're pulling that up, Ewok, I'd like to ask you, I mean, do you think that this recent pump and kind of the solidification we've seen of that over the last couple of weeks, is it even more of a sign that the bottom is in? I mean, everybody's favorite charter, I just saw he's going to be on later tonight with Vibra Finance, but if I'm saying that correctly, but Axis Alive is going to be on a stream here in a little while. We had him on a few weeks ago, and everybody's favorite PulseChain charter last week when he was on with Crypto Heartbeat, I think it was very confident that he thought the bottom was in after just what we've kind of seen lately. And it's hard to disagree. I mean, it's gone down and touched that like third point quad 433 a couple of times. It happened right after the SEC news came down on like August the 1st, and then it happened a couple of weeks ago too. So we've been up over that now, and you're seeing these higher lows kind of be put in here as we pull up the chart. So
it was depressing to go from the 15-minute chart down to the daily chart, because this is looking pretty good here. Right. And then, you go back to the daily chart and you're like, oh yeah, I forgot we're still pretty far down here. But to your point, yes, we are, we're putting in the higher lows since back here, August 23rd. Now, don't forget, I think we are on day 143. I looked earlier today. So we got 143 days of candles. It's looking rather good. Now, what levels are we looking at? Well, we need to get above this, one of the very first resistance levels that we had, where it bounced off of pretty good, and that's like 0.40 and a 0.55. Actually,
I was going to say that or 6 or something.
Yeah, the 5. It's funny because that was technically the all-time bottom for Hex was 0.0000 was a 5655. So we're in a very similar territory right in through here. And that's where we really need to break through next. You got some of these other ones right around looks like 48, where it's bounced off of that a couple times. So this is going to be a very telling. I am sharing my screen, right?
Yeah, I got it.
Oh, okay. I think it's going to be a very telling level as we can break through this, because we've 1, 2, 3, 4 days of candles where we bounced off of that level at that 4837-ish level. If we can bust through that on this next one of these next run-ups and stay above it, and then if it does pull back, hopefully that becomes the new support. So I mean, that's one of the things that you definitely want to keep an eye out for, is getting above this 0.00048. So, that's our next point. And then obviously after that, like I said, about the 5.5 level, and then you start getting into some of these 6, 9, 7 areas, because this big candle didn't have a whole lot of resistance. It just tanked.
Just out of the bottom of the basement.
Yeah. So, there isn't a whole lot of different levels that are stopping it on our way back up. So hopefully we can make some nice runs. Now, like I said, there are a couple of these little ones where it did chop around, and it will be resistance. But once we break through it, if we can turn that resistance into support, we're looking good to keep making some of these higher lows and truck on our way up through there back to the original sacrifice amount. So
and this is
what
why
I'm saying. Oh wait,
yeah, this no, that was you had hold on a sec.
This is the Pulse.
No, you had
PulseX.
Pulse. Yeah, I
but
think
it's
you had Pulse up.
PulseX.
I just want to say real quick, but this is why we do buy the bottoms, you know, I mean, or if you want to, but I mean, that's what we've been doing along the way is buying the bottoms. And that's why you do it, because I said this a couple of weeks ago, and we've all kind of been referencing the sacrifice phase, the sacrifice price of 3 zeros and a 1. But I mean, that as we go on is going to become a thing of the past, and people probably aren't going to focus on it as much. So I think it's best to not worry about that number as much and look at the actual bottom as the bottom, which it is clearly, and just be buying it. And, you know, hey, maybe we have to adjust our expectations down, you know, as you learn more data and more things happen as to what people may have thought this thing was going to do initially. But if you're not buying when it's down, you're not capitalizing on that move as much. So, you know, you could just kind of be a bag holder and not do anything. And, you know, I've heard Sami's talked about this a lot, but about how depressing it would be for some of these people if we go like another 6 months or another year almost to where it takes PulseChain to get to sack rate or a little bit above again or something. And that would be like 3 years that these people were holding, getting nothing basically. Yeah. I understand that for somebody who over leveraged themselves, but that really wasn't you or I or anybody sensible, I don't think. So if people are out there feeling that kind of pain, I can't really relate to it. And that would just be like a nice lesson maybe for next time to not leverage yourself so high in a sacrifice type phase or something like that. You know, it's just a small portion of my portfolio overall. I was more concerned with buying Hex leading up to the split to get that copy, you know, back in December of 2022. Exactly. When it was, So a good lesson for everybody. Not that this opportunity is ever going to come again necessarily, but just a good lesson for next time if there is one anyway. But what do you think though for PulseChain for the rest of the year then? I mean, we talked about BTC, 35K. I think we both think is maybe the most realistic, like bullish thing that could happen. But what do you think for PulseChain? I mean, we obviously are going to have maybe an event at the end of November with that phone conference. I don't know what we'll get out of that. That may be a decent factor in all of this as far as short-term price action. But what do you think by the end of the year for PulseChain?
I think it could be very bullish, especially if no one shows up.
Well, if it, including the SEC, you mean, or if there's just if there's no reason for people to show up.
Well, I mean, so here's the thing: if Richard has not been served, why would he have anybody, that represents him show up? That's almost him admitting that he's been served, right? If he hasn't been served, I don't see any reason for them to show up at this phone conference. That's just
he's not going to. That'd be stupid. Yeah,
right. That's what I'm saying. So I think that the whole non-showing up would be super bullish, basically a big FU to them. I think it could really catapult things. Now if something does turn around and come out after that, we could see a little pullback because that would, entice some bearish sentiment across the board of like, oh crap, now what? But I think that could really help us to the end of the year. I could see us getting up close to that 3-0 number, somewhere between 7 and 9,000. I think it's going to at least 2x from here by the end of the year. I could see that stair step up to that point at least. That's just kind of what I'm thinking.
Well, that would be sack rate, So it would be interesting. Yeah, he's definitely not going to show up, or neither any representation if he doesn't get served. I'm more interested in what would, if they aren't able to serve him, what the SEC would do. Do they just show up hat in hand and say, sorry, we didn't even serve the guy?
Well, I think it expires. I think they would have to resubmit it then after and try again. Is how it works out as far as what I understand. If they're not able to serve after so long, it kind of gets thrown out and they have to resubmit.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, we will see. It's definitely going to be an interesting day. That's still about 7, almost still 8 weeks off. So
yeah, it's two
after
months.
Thanksgiving here, we can flip the calendar over and see what's going on there.
Yep.
Maybe get an early Christmas present. We'll see.
I hope
But
so.
yeah, so it's going to be an interesting rest of the year, and it all starts like we said earlier with October. This is a big month with things actually happening on the blockchain. So we have Liquid Loans announcing they will be launching this month. Mintra, I believe, is also launching this month. Earlier, we had a question in the chat about the Fetch Oracle that Liquid Loans is bringing along with them, which I think is so. Basically, what an Oracle is like what Chainlink is for the rest of crypto. Provides data based on any kind of thing you want. It's way too much nerd speak that would go over my and most people's heads, but I mean they basically provide data. You have to actually buy the Chainlink token to get said data. Whatever you may need. So the Fetch Oracle from Liquid Loans is kind of their version of that, which is going to be big. I mean, this is why I think, regardless of the PH products are all awesome, of course, and they're trading platforms and things like that. But I think this Oracle as part of the Liquid Loans launch is going to be huge. Do you think, Ewok, that all these things coalescing at the same time? I mean, they're all coming out in October. It seems like it was kind of a planned attack to a degree with some of these, almost like a gentleman's agreement, like everybody just waiting to launch at the same time. That narrative of, are they going to wait and see what's happening with the SEC or the thing in November, seems to be out the window, assuming the launch actually does occur this month, which I think it will. How bullish do you think this is, and where do you think these products launching could take it? Because it certainly could be a buy the rumor, sell the news type of event, but it's bullish that things are still being built. And this is why just looking at price solely isn't really worth it if you want to buy this ecosystem right now. We have to look at like, hey, people are building like awesome stuff on here right now.
So I think just Liquid Loans alone, that's all we really have to talk about as far as being bullish. It gives people the opportunity to take a loan out against their stuff and get real value rather than selling it on the market. So there's nothing but bullish about that whole thing. Unless they get liquidated. And then not exactly sure how that whole process works once a loan gets liquidated. But there's still, people don't have to sell. They can extract value. It keeps the market in the right direction, at least. I don't think they were waiting for any particular time with the SEC. I think they were really just trying to make sure that this software is right. You're going to have a lot of people using it, a lot of money going into it. And the last thing you want is for something that is immutable code to have bugs in it, especially when you're talking about that much money invested and that many people using the platform. If something goes wrong with it, it would be a dagger. You know what I mean? And I don't know that they could come back from it. So, as much as we like to say, well, they've been testing it, they're waiting for the news, they're waiting for the market to bottom. I really just think that they're honestly making sure that all the audits go through, all the testnet stuff is working. They're trying to run every scenario through it just to make sure. But how can it not be bullish, right? I mean, it just gives people that option to pull value without selling. And then if it goes up, to pay that loan back at such a lower level is incredible. I don't see how that alone can't spark a really nice run up, because again, with no selling pressure and only buying, we know what makes the price go up. That's more people buying than selling. And if they're not selling and they're borrowing, it's a perfect recipe for a nice little catapult here into the end of the year.
I think so too. And the problem with this market of the many, with the investors in it, including even you and I, Ewok, is that we are here every day pouring over it. It's the most interesting market like in the history of the world. So why not the biggest returns? But the thing is, crypto has always had that dichotomy of like things move so fast. There's crazy volatility. There's crazy return and everything. but it actually leads people to being impatient. And you would think, why is that? If you could attain what you in crypto in 2 years, if you kind of time things correctly, you could attain more wealth than you could have almost your entire life in the stock market. So, it's like, well, why the hell can't people be patient if that's all it takes? Well, it's because of that volatility, because when you're down, like we all are right now, you're really down from where you may have been before, unless you really plan in the bull market. But, it just goes to show, we're all getting impatient because we're here every single day. These things like this, Mintra launching, Liquid Loans launching, the Fetch Oracle, all these amazing PH products so far, everybody in the face of the garbage from the SEC still building on this chain that we believe is the best opportunity in crypto. I mean, we're not hedging our bets anywhere else. Yeah, will other things go up more than Pulse? Of course, we don't know what they are, and it's likely nothing that you want to be buying, and it could be in a very short window, So we just have to remember, these behaviors are good. The things we're seeing built are good. And we just have to keep having faith and just wait for the calendar. If that Arthur Hayes thing, and I'm probably going to listen to that Arthur Hayes interview 3 times just to keep me bullish, I guess, over the next couple of years. But, if something to that effect, even the 150K target, and just all the money printing, ending in early 2026, if all that comes to pass, there's not a person I think involved in this ecosystem, as long as they do the right things and be patient, that isn't going to do well.
And think about this too. There's going to be people using liquid loans to borrow money to buy more Pulse. So they're going to put Pulse up as collateral, leverage it out, but use the money, use the USDL, which is that's another good thing too. It'll be our second stable coin on PulseChain. I think there will be another one.
It might be third.
After that. Well, it might be third, depending on when the other one comes. There's a third one. I can't remember the name off.
Okay, I was making a different joke, but anyway.
But either way, the more stable coins, native stable coins to PulseChain, the better. But a lot of people are going to extract value to buy more Pulse, which is a double whammy, as far as price increase goes. So, so very bullish. I'm just, it's amazing to see the community now just coming to life, and all of these things that have been launching or already launched, and they kind of all build off of each other. So bullish. I'm just so excited. And as long as you have a good time horizon, we're all going to be fantastic, whether you buy now or catch a dip or whenever. As long as your time horizon is the long one, we're in good shape.
Yeah, for sure. I'm super excited. It's going to be a great day when these things launch this month. So just keep looking out for that. Don't get too obsessed with the charts, and let's just worry about the next 2 to 3 years, to see where things are headed here.
Can we answer D'Artagnan here real quick? He was asking about the conference call with the SEC, and I don't know if this was before or after I said what I said. It's supposed to be November 28th. However, if Richard has not been served with his paperwork or whatever, if they haven't been able to serve him, there may be no conference call at all. We don't know. I don't think he would show up and defend him something he hasn't been served or gotten paperwork for. So I think that's kind of where we're at. But tentatively, it is November 28th at 10 a.m. or something like that?
Yeah,
remember what
time? Yeah, so, 10:30. Yeah.
So that's that.
Yeah, so we will see. Definitely going to be a very interesting couple of months here. From the bullish and positive and fun to the not so bullish in the short term anyway, and somebody who doesn't have that patience that we've been talking about. And look, I am certainly nobody to judge them because their net worth, probably laps me tenfold. But Rockham doing some of the selling over the last couple of days. It looks like those were some of the big sells that actually have come through. That we saw the ecosystem really plummet. I guess EHEX, I didn't even notice this. It was probably just a wick and really quick, but actually did go just past that 0.3 of a penny point down to 2.9 or something like that. Apparently BankX also did dump, that's probably the other reason. EHEX the other day, I think it was 8 million. 8 million. Yeah. So this could explain why EHEX didn't pump as much with the rest of the ecosystem the last few days. But still, as we've been talking about, it's been tethered to that, 0.3 of a penny range. What do you think about the selling here from these two entities? And I do say entities because I think it is, an entity in both cases here, really, with many people actually. But do you think these guys are done selling it? And what do you make of some of what we heard from Rakim before, in terms of like not selling, followed up
Right.
by massive selling? So I'll let
Yeah.
you take it away.
Well, so we all know that Rockham Rishel was part of Overwatch Partners. They had a pool for the sacrifice. I don't know which wallet sold. I don't know if it was his wallet or one of the wallets that participated in the sacrifice itself. Either way, it was one that was tied to that group. So saying it was actually him, I don't know that that's been proven. But coming from that group, we all know, I don't know if you remember or not, whenever it was taking so long to come out with the product, there were several threats actually made by him to Richard about how angry his Saudi friends were getting and things like that. So there were some big investors. I believe $48 million worth of money was sacrificed into that pool. So again, I don't know specifically. I'm not the one doing the chain analysis on it to know if it was actually his wallet or if we know for sure that it was. But yes, kind of ironic. A day or two later, recording of a Twitter Spaces came out, and it was him preaching to everybody about not selling too early and holding for at least a year, if not two. And then to see that whole thing, there was how many billion? Do you remember? Was it?
I don't know.
It was 20 or 40 billion pulse at least. Anyway, were dumped out of that address. So the irony of these people saying and preaching how you've got to hold to make money. Yes, they made a lot of money with Hex at the beginning with Overwatch. I'm pretty sure that's where the green Lambo came from, and a couple other nice new toys. But either way, the way I see it is it gets them out now. I would rather see some of these big wallets get out now while we're still down here. They get very little value, and then if they do buy back in, that's cause for some nice big candles on the way back up. So I'm fine with it. I'm totally fine with it. As far as Bank X goes, they still have 700 million. So that 8 million EHEX was really just a drop in the bucket to them. And I think somebody dared them to clear out. They had two wallets. Somebody dared them to clean out their loose change. And sure enough, they did. So, I mean, they're listening and they're active. I think it's funny how, when people say things and they react, when other people react to some of the things that are said by the community, it just goes to show you that they are watching. They know what's going on. Why they're not staking it and revolving it, who knows? I don't know if they've kind of given up on that because the price
I remember
is so
them mentioning
low.
that. Yeah.
But I thought that's what they were going to do. I thought they were going to revolve a couple wallets and a couple stakes and go that route. I think they would be better off trying to unload some of it that way rather than all at once. But again, I'm perfectly fine with some of these big guys getting out now. While the price is still low, it won't hurt us as much later. And get them out now. Wash them out.
It's best to prepare now. And I mean, like the prices are already so depressed, why not? And it's not like it even did that much. We've already been down here and everything. So, And that's the other thing too, is like telling somebody how to spend their money when they have like infinitely more than you do. I mean, whatever. I mean, I'm not happy that they did it or anything like that. It's just like you said, it is what it is. So what are you going to do? Just move on. So it is good to get that stuff out of our system. I want to ask you this. So transitioning to PulseX talk for a little bit. So, it's well documented, but PulseX was the darling of what this ecosystem would be prior to it actually launching. and it falling flat on its face price wise. And we've talked in detail about it. We had a good conversation with Axis Live a couple of weeks ago about it, that it's simply a math problem. That's it. Like 3 to 4 times the people had PulseX. There was 3 to 4 times the money in PulseX because it was a much later sacrifice than the actual Pulse sacrifice. And we've seen that reflected in the price. The nice thing is we haven't really seen the ratio get to catastrophic territory at all. The worst it's really gotten prior, other than ratio trading days, those first couple days when the PulseChain bridge was clogged up, worst it's gotten really is like 1 to 4. Essentially Pulse to PulseX, and I think it's recovered on that a little bit now. But it hasn't gotten that disastrous as far as the ratio goes. Now the PulseX to DAI chart or whatever you want to look at is not looking very good, obviously.
Yeah.
But in terms, not just the price, so that's price, but actually talking about sentiment around the DEX, because again, everybody was pumping this thing up. We all think it was because they were pumping their bags. That's what everybody had the most of, and the buy and burn narrative and everything. Well, the buy and burn is still there. It's still working. We just don't have the activity on the chain that we think we're going to have a year, 2 years from now. So this is very interesting. And this is one reason of many that Gary, Funding Jim, is such a great part of this community. And to somebody who didn't know who he was, maybe, or you never really heard of him before, you would think that he was maybe like trolling Sami in this tweet that I saw, but this is a really good conversation. So Sami tweeted that if PulseX got to, I guess he has this 3 cent idea in mind, because I think Westcott was talking about 3 cents. I don't know, but Sami was laying out that like Hex would have to be $28 for that to be a possibility. So basically just saying that's not going to happen. But Gary's follow-up tweet, so he just said generally about PulseX, what do you see as the strongest reasons to choose PulseX token rather than any other PRC20 DEX? And, we have other ones. You and I have both been talking about Piteous a lot and using it. I've used it for my last few buys and I love it. Like it's a DEX aggregator that's awesome. So we've been using that. Mm-hmm. But Gary says, I'm curious how you value baked in price of the SAC value versus the token itself, talking about PulseX. The token has nothing, has no utility about it at the moment. It is the beneficiary of the buy and burn, but the beneficiary always can be changed to a new contract. How do you value the ideas of utility of this token versus the meme of it being an RH favored DEX? He's not being a troll. He's simply, because people are going to ask that question. That's why he's asking that question. Sami's reply, great post, Gary. There's an enormous first mover advantage. And I think he's right about this. And that, you can call this dumb. That's fine. But it's the same reason that Ethereum is the brand. It's the reason that we all call Band-Aids Band-Aids, because Band-Aid is the brand and they were the first ones to do it, whatever. It doesn't matter if somebody's making a better product. It was there first. So that's kind of what Sami is saying here. There's an enormous first mover advantage and home team advantage with PulseX. This is the same as Uniswap on Ethereum and PancakeSwap on BNB chain. PulseX would naturally have the most liquidity and be home to the biggest slice of volume activity. But in theory, you could steal all the attention from it, but good luck trying that. Look how hard it was for anybody to take the thunder away from Uniswap. Impossible, even with incentives like SushiSwap. And he's right about that. Like Uniswap is certainly nothing special. We've seen some of their shady ways here, even more so recently. So he goes on to say, PulseX buy and burn pressure is very good for long-term upside capture, but this doesn't win in a vacuum, as we still need to see a lot of volume and trading activity. BNB coin has allegedly profit rotated from Binance exchange fees profit. So it's a good example to show people what's possible. So owning PulseX is owning the casino. I think he's right about that. I mean, it's a good argument to say like there are other DEXs. Again, I've been using Piteous, actually, not PulseX. But in terms of the token, it's an RH product, first mover advantage, the buy and burn, in there. It's going to be the one that people use the most often. I think he's right on all those points. So it's a great question by Gary, and I think a good answer by Sami. But what do you think, Ewok? Does it work out that way? What do you think?
I think so too. I think first mover advantage has a lot to do with it. As far as Piteous, or I think it's Piteous, but either way, as far as that aggregator is concerned, you're still using PulseX. Maybe not 100% of the buy, but a majority of it with liquidity is still going to come from there. So the things like that, like the aggregators, even if you're using another product, Even if you're using one of the PH products where PulseX is part of that liquidity pool, you're still interacting with PulseX. So again, it goes back to the first mover. It goes back to, like you said, with all the other things out there other than Uniswap still led the way as far as transactional volume went. And when that transactional volume starts to take off, you're definitely going to notice it in the buy and burn. And when the buy and burn really kicks in, you're going to notice it in price action. So it's going to be a waterfall effect of things. And I still think that coming back to that, like you said, the first mover advantage is key, especially in this ecosystem, and because it's a Richard Hart product. So the trust factor is definitely big as well.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I don't own any Piteous tokens or however you pronounce it, or any of these other dexes or anything. I own PulseX. So, and everybody wants PulseX. So,
yeah,
it just kind of maybe it sounds like a dumb answer or whatever, but sometimes a dumb answer is the right answer.
Yeah,
I mean, you have to look at what the market is doing.
Keep it simple.
Keep it simple. So that's what's going on with PulseX. If you guys are enjoying the stream, do us a favor, hit the like. We really appreciate it. We do this every single Wednesday night right here at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Talking real quick about pDAI, we kind of approach this conversation once a week here. Not necessarily getting into it very much and Atropa and whatever all is going on there right now. But pDAI, had its crazy run up there. Back I guess like beginning middle of September. I think the all-time high was at about 0024, 0026 or something like that. Since then, it has had quite a big pullback. It's gone the whole way down to like 75% off, almost 80%. Went down to 0007 or something like that. So my question to you, Ewok, and maybe you could offer advice to anybody in this position. I'm not here to dunk on pDAI, but I'll probably make a thumbnail with this clip acting like we are, so people click on it, and then we'll get a bunch of vitriol comments, but whatever.
Sure.
So what do you, if you were, and I know you didn't, unless you did something and didn't tell me about it, but I know you didn't buy any pDAI. I threw a flyer in, which I think is what a lot of just regular sensible people did. If you did, you know what? I'm not telling anybody what to do. Whatever, it's your
sensible
money. Like,
hang on.
Wait, what? What'd you say?
You said a lot of sensible people. Lot of sensible people did.
Well, from seeing some other streams, I just mean the sensible thing if people wanted to get involved would say, like, you know what, this is intriguing. I think there's a little bit here. I'm going to throw a little wee flyer in. That's pretty much what I did. Yeah, I know. So for the people that are maybe deep into it and are down right now, even though it's been pumping like hell today, I haven't really checked on where it's been recently, but that are down that low, that are maybe panicking or something right now, seeing the rest of the ecosystem was pumping a little bit and pDAI wasn't, which has been inverse from what we were seeing last month. What would you say to those people? I mean, like if they are panicking and regretting the buy and everything right now, what would you say to people that are down in pDAI right now? What would you say to me? That's really what I'm asking here. What do I do with my small pDAI stack, Ewok?
Well, if you really just threw in a little bit as a flyer, I would let it alone. There's no point pulling back at this or selling at this point of a pullback. It is looking a little bullish today. Let it go. I don't really think there's anything to fear right here. I mean, this chart is looking pretty healthy.
Yeah.
I think it's operated by a bot. There's more and more people still digging into this thing every day. Some people say they've got information on who created it and this and that. And I don't think it really matters at this point. I'm still under the impression that it will probably never peg to $1. But that doesn't mean it's not going to run up. It doesn't mean it's not going to do some decent gains. So for the people that got in, anywhere back in here, even if it gets to a penny for whatever, that's still a nice, 10x from here. So sure. I wouldn't do anything foolish, and you threw money in there and thinking that it was just a play. Leave it in, leave it go, let it ride. At this point, you're playing with the casino. It's a long shot. You got to let it go, because if you don't and you do get out at this point, you'll kick yourself if it does happen to go up to even 10 cents or a penny or whatever it may end up doing. But
Right.
I think the Oracle, if anything, if they're able to tie Fetch Oracle to this coin, it's one of the things that we talked about earlier, and being able to peg to $1. If they're able to tie it in any kind of way, that's what DAI really uses to keep itself pegged, and that is an Oracle. And because we didn't have one on PulseChain, that's why I said, well, it can't peg. There's no way to do it,
Right.
because the code of it says that it needs an Oracle to do that. Well, with the addition of the Oracle, who knows how they could possibly integrate that into making it do what it needs to do. And, here we are, always creating value out of nothing. That's kind of what crypto is. But, again, I wouldn't do anything. I wouldn't do anything at this point, with DAI or Teddy Bear or any of those things that you may have thrown a couple bucks in to see what happens. I think they all kind of had a little bit of a pullback, but yeah, let them go is my advice. But,
what about SRF, Sens Research Foundation token? What would you do with that?
Don't know anything about it.
That's another. I don't know if it's affiliated with the Tropo, but I've heard that one talked about here too.
Well, I know it's not affiliated with the guy.
The Sens Research Foundation.
Yeah, Sens Research Foundation. I definitely don't think that he had anything to do with it. What was his name? I'm drawing a blank.
I don't remember. No, I forget what it is too. But yeah, I'm with you on pDAI. I mean, to be down as much as you may be down right now, and then just rotate it back into Pulse here, I think would be classic stupidity, because it's like, well, Pulse has run up, this is run down, and now you panic sold. If you are panic selling pDAI, though, I would say stop investing in stuff you don't actually believe in, because when PulseChain and PulseX and all these things went down 70%. Now, you may have panic sold. I don't know who I'm talking to here, but did you panic sell them? Because I surely didn't. I bought more. So if it's not something that when it goes down 70%, you want to buy more of, you shouldn't have been in it to begin with. So if you're having those feelings, maybe when you get back made whole again, or maybe when it 2x's, cash out your principal, whatever you want to do, and get out of it, because not having that kind of belief, you're always going to go wrong with an investment like that.
Well, so. and that kind of leads to what Brazology just said. He said, I noticed that pDAI, when these things drop pretty bad, when all the RH coins pumped, now that RH coins are pulling back, those seem to be going up. I don't know if it's so much people playing back and forth. I really hope not, because it's a good way to get caught with your pants down and lose all the gains that you made. So, I hope that's not what people are doing. But, if they are and they're good traders, the problem is most people are not good traders. So you really can get sideways and upside down with this method of waiting for one to pump, sell it, buy into the other one, let it pump. You almost have to have perfect timing to do that. Otherwise, you end up with a lot less of both coins that you're going back and forth with.
Well, people are definitely doing it. I mean, as far as people, like the majority, I have no idea, but I know that people are doing that for sure. And I've been seeing the same thing that Briz said. Yeah, like once the core ecosystem goes one way, that's been going the other way. So definitely something to still keep an eye on. I mean, the only thing I'm really intrigued in is what is maybe going on with Atropa, how it links to some of these different tokens, and actually pDAI. I don't really go any further than that, but yeah, I forget. I don't even remember what PRS is. That's a pulse reflection something.
I'm not sure either. You would have to look at like Dex Screener or something like that to see. As far as liquidity goes, I don't think you could look in PH, the fiat first, to see what pools are out there, if it's any of those. But your best bet is to look at Dex Screener to see who's got liquidity pools with it.
Yeah, hit up B Roots and Ian or those guys as well. I'm sure they're up to date with everything going on there too. So yeah, I don't shy away from those conversations. I think it's interesting. I definitely think the Atropa thing is worth some attention. Whether or not you buy any of the tokens is your own choice. So
yeah,
there you go. Good job. Good job.
There's your advice.
There's your advice. Yeah. Thank you. Okay. So moving on to this. So base protocol, they are having the single year stake event that's happening right now. I think somebody was just, I think was a dip catcher that was just streaming about this maybe last night. I
Yep.
admittedly have never really gotten too involved with the perpetuals and stuff. I know you know a lot more about it than I do, Ewok. So tell us a little bit about base protocol, some of the other ones as well, and what the big single year stake is that's happening with it right now.
So the way, well, let's back up. Dip catcher and his team, they decided to come out with the Maximus perpetuals. So Maximus was the first perpetual. It was a 15-year pooled stake that all runs by contract. The cool thing with these are that really, if you're involved in the pool, you don't necessarily have to be the one to pay the gas fee to end it. Somebody is going to be a good actor and pay that for you. It was Gold Key. Thanks, Briz. Was the other guy that is part of that group. Then they came out with DESI, which was a 10-year. They basically just changed the parameters of the Maximus stake and did DESI. Lucky is 7 years. Trio is 3 years. And I guess base was the other one. So base is the 1-year stake. The base first year term came due on 2 days ago, I think it was. It was either Sunday or Monday. And somebody paid that fee. It ended. You could, at that point, redeem it for, I think it was 1 point something hex if you wanted to turn them in and get your hex. Or you could leave it and stake it back in the contract and add it another go. They are anticipating this year, if you were part of the first one, that after your second year, you'll end up with 1.25 hex for every hex that you invested in the first time into the pool. So I think there's 5 days left. If you're interested in it's a good way to make a 1-year stake without really doing anything. Really, you're not paying the gas on it. You're not interacting with the contracts. You're essentially just trading your hex for the base. Those go into the pool. They get staked. And then again, a good actor, somebody will come along and end that stake as part of the contract call. And, it's a great way because you don't know what the gas fees are going to be in a year. Right. That's a big thing. As the bull market takes off, we had mentioned the last time there was a bull market and stakes were ending. I think I had mentioned I paid, I don't know if it was $1,400 or $1,600 to end an early day stake because the gas fees were so high. However, I still came out ahead because there was a fair amount of hex in there. So,
right.
I think it's a great opportunity, something to look into. It's still hex. It's just locked in a perpetual contract where you're also, don't forget about the bigger pays better bonus that most people can't get on their own, unless you have millions of hex to put in there. There is a bigger pays better bonus that caps out at 150 million. That is the goal for this stake. They're trying to get enough in there so that it can max out the bigger pays better. So another advantage of pooling with other people. And again, the date it starts, the date it ends. Look into it because it's definitely a good deal, and you got about 5 days left on this stake.
So. Another reason I think it's good right now too is if you do have liquid hex to do that with right now, that's kind of the decision that I made a few months back is to just, when all of this discussion was going on about eHex versus pHex and all these things, when I knew I wasn't going to sell my eHex or trade it at a loss for pHex or something like that. So I just loaded up these short-term fat stakes for a year and a half, stuff like that. Trying to time the bull market because I kind of wanted to keep this stuff liquid, but I'm like, you know what? If I'm not going to sell it, I want to get something out of it here. So
might as well make some more.
Yeah, that's why I think the base thing is a good opportunity as well. Because, like you said, you couldn't get the bigger pays better, on your own, and it's a year. So, I mean, you
Yeah.
have that insurance of like in October 2024. I mean, I think that is the first kind of the very first part of the window that this next bull market, I
Yep.
don't think it'll be ending then, but I mean, that would ensure you that you're not missing the top, I don't think. So,
Exactly. And you could do this both because the contract was copied when PulseChain forked. So keep in mind, it is active on both Ethereum and PulseChain. So you have to do, they're different. They're different contracts now. So, you can't just put in and be in both. You have to manually enter both pools on both sides. So,
yeah. Yeah. Yeah, definitely something to take advantage of. So check that out. That's base and gold key and now
dip
I'm forgetting.
catcher.
Okay, dip catcher. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So awesome stuff. Really good creation by those guys for sure. Just a couple of some of the awesome people that are making stuff. We got Alex with Hedron and Icosa, of course, which is built on top of Hex, all kinds of great stuff. So, and he's working on more stuff as well. So we'll be seeing
Yeah.
that soon. I want to wrap up tonight with a couple of, well, first one's not fun. I almost said that, but we're going to hear Ewok's crypto security story today. So he had something happen right around 4 o'clock or so Eastern time today, in the midst of us communicating. That is, you'll have to correct me if I'm wrong, but I mean, probably one of the freakiest. Well, you've had some things happen, but crypto security issues that you've kind of had pop up. As this story unfolded, I said to him, I mean, this might be good to mention on the stream tonight, because I mean, this could happen to people. This is not something I would expect, but listen up, everybody, because this is a pretty interesting one. We'll see how it affected him today. And Ewok, you share as many of the details as you want to really about this, but definitely an interesting story and one to heed caution of.
So here's how it all started. The phone rings, I pick it up, and they asked for me by name, and I said, yeah. They said, this is Coinbase support calling because somebody attempted to change the default email and remove the two-factor authentication. Well, of course it concerned me. It didn't register that the email that he had read off at that point was not the email that was tied to my account. That was the first thing that I didn't catch right off the bat. But, sometimes there are backup emails or whatever involved, and I wasn't sure if that one was or not. But either way, so they sent me a code after that for the email address itself. And at that point, I thought, man, this is strange. Why are they sending me a code for an email from Coinbase when that's not the email address? And I realized it as I was reading it off to him, because, again, I was concerned about the two-factor authentication being tied to my bank account. As soon as I read it off, I saw that somebody had accessed my Twitter account. So it really wasn't even about the Coinbase at all. It was about getting into the email that my Twitter was tied to, which was a different one than what my Coinbase was tied to. So immediately when I saw that, I logged in. I was still on the phone with the guy from so-called Coinbase. And, the next thing he asked me, which really threw the first red flag, that I should just not answer any more questions and give him any kind of information. He asked me if I had any external hardware wallets, like a Trezor or a Ledger or anything like that. And even though, I do, I answered, I'm like, no, and that shouldn't affect anything with Coinbase anyway. And he's like, yeah, you're right. I just wanted to double check, So, but anyway, off to the Twitter episode. So they got into my Twitter. I tried to log back in. They kind of had locked me out of it. So I changed the password real quick and got in, and I started to I tried to put two-factor authentication on my Twitter. And by the time I got there, they had changed the password again. So it was this back and forth deal of, American accent, Priz. It was a California, LA number. It was
oh, wow.
It was definitely an LA number. I know they're based in
San
California somewhere, but it was an LA number. And so we played this little dance with Twitter, though, back and forth a couple times. By the time, they had made a couple posts. I know they had sent you a private message as well in the midst of all of that. But after probably a half hour of doing the back and forth dance of changing my password, getting in, and I was finally able to get the two-factor authenticator set up. And then it kicked me out again. I thought, man, I didn't do it. But what happened was it kicked me out and then made me sign in with the authenticator. And then from there, I was pretty good. So just be careful. These guys are getting creative. Until I read the code off and realized that I was reading the email reset code and had nothing to do with Coinbase or the email that was even tied to it, I'm lucky it wasn't more serious of a hack because I was at work. I was busy. They caught me by surprise when someone says something's wrong with your Coinbase. The first thing you do is like, oh shit, someone's trying to steal money.
Right.
And I went into defensive mode. But anyway, it all worked out well. Something about the Blur token. So if you saw a post from me today on Twitter about giving away $50,000 worth of Blur token, sorry guys, that's not me. I'm not doing that. And yeah, we got it cleared out and deleted, and we're back in business now with two factors. So all good. It was just very, like I said, a warning to everybody is to be careful because they get creative and they start asking questions or talk about something. I think they just assumed that my Twitter was Crypto Ewok and knew to take a chance on Coinbase to get some sort of password or reset or something so that they could access the email address that was tied to my Twitter account. And that's what they did. So
definitely funny, but also scary. I mean, like, it was very weird, when I did see, because I had just DM'd you right around this time and I saw the tweet about Blur and was immediately like, this is not something that doesn't add up here. And then immediately after I DM'd you, I just get this cold response of like, hey, I'm with Blur now. Or I signed up with Blur, $50,000, and then sent a link and all this. And I'm like, okay, something's really messed up here. So I temporarily blocked you. And because I was like, this guy, whoever's in here now has access to like our message history and stuff. And I don't remember what all is in there or anything. So I blocked it, and waited until this whole back and forth thing for a couple hours before giving you the old unblock. So definitely weird story for sure. And something to look out for. But it's good that you've been in crypto for long enough now to know. I mean, like, why would somebody from Coinbase be trying to ask you about your hardware wallets? It doesn't.
Well, again, that was the second red flag. The first one I didn't catch until I read back the email code that I voluntarily just gave up.
Right.
But it's because, and I had mentioned to you, the reason I gave it up so easily is because that account I've had people try to replace my default email address before, and I've actually had support call me from that, and it came from the same number. And I'm thinking, well, this is the same number, the same text number, but it would be if they tried to reset it and they entered it. So, again, that's why it didn't catch me off guard until it was too late and I had already given up that information.
Right. Yeah. Well, you still saved yourself in the end. So
yeah, it all worked out.
Yeah. Good story for sure. We can wrap up with this. We are going to go ahead and shill some clothing. We got a Creative Crypto store out now. We have a Hex collection, a PulseChain collection, a PulseX collection, and then one of just like the actual Creative Crypto with the all the PulseChain symbols on it. So feel free. I mean, we have it on all of our videos if you want to check it out. We got everything from hoodies, long sleeve shirts, short sleeve shirts. I think the designs are pretty cool. Ewok, I know you ordered a couple of them last night for yourself. So if you guys are into clothes being on your body, that represents,
well, that's usually where clothes go.
But they are, that have things you like on them. Feel free to check it out, or feel free to don't. Whatever is your prerogative. But figured we'd throw it up there and had a lot of fun creating the designs. Actually, I think some of them are pretty cool. And the PulseChain one is the real DeFi slogan. The Hex one is the one you came up with. BYOB, be your own bank. And then PulseX just has the buy and burn on there. So check them out if you
And
are.
the one I
feeling
bought was
fancy.
the Crypto Crypto. So it's got the Tri logos with the Hex, PulseChain, and PulseX logos. I already have one of those shirts, but this one actually has Creative Crypto on it, so you
There
can
you go.
represent us. And yeah, it is in all the videos. Once the live stream, it's not in the live stream, I don't think, but it's in the replay.
I think it is.
And if you don't want to, go through the video, you can just go to creativecrypto.com, and we have that linked right to the store as well.
Yeah. Yep. CreativeCrypto.com will take you right there. And my favorite for sure is the Tri Blend shirts. I always like light shirts that have that they have like 3 different mixes, and I can't stand cotton shirts. I don't like the feel of them or anything. It's too tight, doesn't really form to your body. So I'm gonna probably pick up a couple of the Tri Blend ones, which they do have on there. So
Yep.
That'll be cool as well. So
Cool.
yeah, I think that pretty much does it. We appreciate everybody in the chat tonight. Again, we do this every single Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. A lot of things coming up this month. The Liquid Loans launch obviously is coming. We've got Mintra, all kinds of bullish stuff happening on a PulseChain. So let's just continue to be patient. If you are so inclined, DCA into this market. We got a lot of fun stuff coming up. So that's going to do it.
Yeah.
So thanks a lot, guys. Smash the like on the way out. For my friend Crypto Ewok, this has been Boi Crypto. We'll catch you guys next week right here on the Creed of Crypto podcast.